So, to delay finishing other projects, I have started a new project, and I'm only in the preliminary stages of not even having written anything yet.
Okay.
But we talked about it off air, and I'm
okay.
not gonna go into it. But I found a call for an Odysseus themed anthology, and it has a word count of 4,000 words, and it's a very long-winded theme explanation. So I'm not going to go into that, but they pay 8 cents a word.
Pretty good.
So I get like, what is it, like, I don't know, $350 or something for or maybe even more. I don't know. I think it's like, I think I looked it up, maybe like $350 if I get a 4,000 word story in.
All right.
Like, that sounds cool, and I could have a fun idea, and we brainstorm some ideas. And I think the story I'm going to go with is going to be unique. I'm not going to say it here, so I don't want people to steal it.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I wasn't really planning on just writing any more themed specific stories for specific presses or publishers, this one, again, because it pays, and I think I might be able to do the story service, do some, do it justice.
He's
there.
doing Odysseus fanfic.
It's going to be sexual and homoerotic because it's Greek. So I'm looking forward to diving into that, and hopefully that'll be one of those things that'll flow out of me like, going to the bathroom after Chipotle.
Like butter.
Yeah, okay, that too. And that's what I'm going to be working on for, hopefully it'll only take a week or so once I actually start it. What else was there? My other stories, I got one that's almost finished. I just need to work out the details, but I was going to submit it to that Cosmic Horror, but I went over the word count. So I'm just going to extend it longer, make it, do it right, and submit it somewhere else. I'm also currently waiting on a bunch of submissions, including one contest I randomly entered. So hopefully I hear back from I've been waiting for months. I'm not hearing anything. Even some of these small publishers where I submitted either reprints or just fucking stories I can't can't do anything with, but I was like, hey, it might be a fit for you. I haven't heard anything.
Well, you got you heard something back from like a week or so ago about the one your one writer story.
Oh yeah, that's
But you didn't really submit that though. Well, you kind of did.
So I'm not going to go into details just for I don't know if I'm allowed to announce it, but one of the publishers I frequently work with now, I queried them about a story that I was sitting on. I was like, hey, I actually had a couple stories, but one I found was more fitting. So it was one I wrote, a theme-specific story that I got rejected for in that writer's retreat last year before. I don't know how long now. And I couldn't think of anywhere else that would be fitting for it. I talked to the one publisher and was like, hey, I do have this story if you wanted to do something with it because they are announcing new projects. And I sent it to them. They read it, thought it was fantastic, and want to publish it. So I'm like, cool. Sometimes it works just to actually... Don't even go through submission guidelines and stuff. Just query if you know an editor. It helps, obviously. But, if you can find the editor or something, be like, hey, just so you know, I have this thing. It might be a little different, but you might be interested just to use it in any project, not just for a specific call. If you want to, I'll send it to you. And if you don't want it, you don't need, whatever. So you can do that. People think every publisher is very specific and you have to just do the open calls and the guidelines and go in the slush pile, but sometimes you can go above that, especially again if you know an editor or the publisher.
If you have a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, but even if you don't, you can still, it never hurts to ask. Just be like, hey, I have this one thing. It's because it goes back to the old magazines and newspapers. A lot of times when you do freelance stuff, you have an article idea, you do a pitch. You can still do pitches. You could pitch a publisher and just be like, hey, I have this story I'm sitting on. Blah, 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 synopsis. If you think you could use it or you're interested in reading it, I can send it over. Don't just send it over.
Right, yeah.
There's another one that I saw a call for an anthology. My story, I wasn't sure if it was quite a fit because it was like a thing about cryptids. And my story actually, it was Appalachian cryptids, and I have a story about Appalachian cryptids, but mine's not a horror story. It's more of a literary story. But they wanted horror. I don't think it was necessarily specifically mentioned that it was horror, but they were leaning towards that. So I messaged them and was like, hey, I'm over the word count and I don't have, I'm over the word count and it's not specifically a horror story, but the story falls into the other categories you wanted. If you're interested, I will send you the whole story, but below is attached just the opening. I attached a couple pages. You could read it, see if the style's to your fitting, and if you like it, I have no problem sending the rest and you can use it. Because sometimes with very specific calls like that, they don't get enough quality stories. So you might be able to just squeak in anyway.
Well, also too, like that story, it's not horror per se, but there's
elements.
There's creepiness and like weird stuff that happens. So
yeah. So I'm hoping they messaged me back just about the general inquiry. They just thought it was a submission, so they didn't read the whole email. So I'm hoping they actually read that and get back to me and like, either they could use it or they can't. That's besides the point. Just the fact that I sent an example of it, so they could at least judge for themselves if they would want to. That's another thing. If you want to submit to something, but you're not going to follow their guidelines, like purposely, it's like, oh, my story, they want 5,000 words, my story's 6,000. Sometimes these publishers, unless it's specific, it has to be under 5,000. They're flexible. They'll, you send them a thing, you query them, like, hey, my story, I've done this before, and I've had editors say, yes, I don't care if it's 9,000 and our thing's 7,000, just send it to me personally. I'll check it and, see if it's a fit. Still got rejected, but like sometimes these publishers are more flexible and they will read your story or at least give it a chance as long as you don't just send it.
And that's also a good way of, like we said, like kind of building a relationship because like now that even like you said, if they reject it, they might have your name in their heads now or if you send them something else, be like, oh, that's that one guy who had that really good story, whatever. And
be like, oh, he's professional. He actually, reaches out and tells us he has something that's not going to be in line with the guidelines, but he did it the right way. He didn't just fucking send something and hope we didn't notice the word count was over or that the story doesn't fit any of the fucking parameters. Because that's one thing people hate the most is when you waste their time.
Yeah.
You send them a story that's fucking 10,000 words and the call's for 5,000 and you didn't say anywhere in it that it was 10,000 words. And maybe they start reading it and it's good, but they have to have 5,000 max because they have a specific word count and story count for their
and stuff.
And they're just like, what the fuck, dude? And so you get blackballed doing that. So don't do that shit. Anyway, today we are following up on last week's episode of 15 great examples of dialogue in fiction. I think we ended on 7, right?
Yeah. So we'll do another 7 and then we'll have an episode for the very last one.
Stop it. Stop being stupid.
Oh,
you dummy head. Anyway, we'll be back in a moment. I gotta come up with another name for Spencer. Last week he was the Oceanic orphan operator.
Yeah.
You're operating orphanages in Oceania. So today, maybe we'll see how that turned out.
Oh no.
You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me, as always, Spencer, the Oceanic Orphanage Obliterator Church.
Aww.
So, was it a tax write-off? Or
honestly, did I just do a bad job? Like,
at least I said orphanage and not orphans.
Yeah.
Because you could have kept the buildings but got rid of the kids.
Yeah.
So anyway, it didn't end well.
No.
Surprise, surprise.
No Batmans.
You obliterated the orphanages, and now you created... That might be how you created Batmans.
Yeah.
Poor orphanages. So today we are back on it with the dialogue stuff. Uh-oh. Maybe not.
Saying words and sentences.
I actually shut the article down.
I fucking deleted it from my phone to never find it again.
No, when you search up the thing, it's the first one. We were...
Bennigan ads?
No. Maybe.
Or Haagen-Dazs?
Haagen-Dazs. We are number 8, Spencer. That's where we were. Oh, that's 15 page. Nope, that was the Conan Doyle one. We did that last episode. We ended on that giant paragraph. This one's very short. Number 8, Brandon Taylor's real life. Here, our protagonist Wallace is questioned by Ramon, a friend of a friend, over the fact that he is considering leaving his PhD program. Boring. So it sounds like a conversation I would never have. Wallace hums. I mean, I wouldn't say that I want to leave, but I thought about it, sure. Why would you do that? I mean, the prospects for black people, you know. What are the prospects for black people? Wallace asks, though he knows he will be considered the aggressor for this question. I don't know where that's going. Brandon Taylor's real life is drawn from the author's own experiences as a queer black man attempting to navigate the unwelcoming world of academia navigating the world of academia, and so it's no surprise that his dialogue rings so true to life. It's one of the reasons the novel was one of our picks for... Okay, that's why they used this as our pick for the novel of the month or whatever. I don't know. What do you garner from that other than maybe using emphasis to show racist or latent racism or just things in the... You could always do the... He's a pretty buff guy, but he's gay, isn't it? Something like that. You can throw that in there. He seemed like an all right guy, but he's a mega guy, right? Number 9, Ernest Hemingway, Hills Like White Elephants. One of the most famous Hemingway stories about abortion.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, abortions. This story's about abortion. Guy trying to talk his girlfriend into having an abortion.
Hey, you stop doing the Family Guy references. So you can do it, but I can't.
That was last episode. This is the whole new episode.
Okay.
Whole new week.
Okay.
Whole new week. In this short story, an unnamed man and a young woman discuss whether or not they should terminate a pregnancy while sitting on a train platform. Terminate a pregnancy. That sounds worse to me. No, abortion is a very harsh word.
It is hard on the ears.
Abortion, terrible. But terminate is not much better.
No.
There's a man who was known as the Terminator, and I'm pretty sure this was a real thing. And he went around terminating people until he can get to this fella named John Connor.
Yes.
I believe, who was trying to overthrow Skynet.
Yeah.
Which was a benevolent, wonderful, artificial intelligence robot syndicate
Overlords.
that wanted to make the world a better place. Overlords, yes. Yes, they were. I'm trying to get a job with the AI people.
Yes.
Trying to be a Skynet.
Trying to be saved.
Trying to be a Skynet.
Become a cyborg.
I'll be a cog in the machine. I'm already a cog in the machine. I can be a literal cog. Like I just winding around a fucking spoolie for my fucking entrails just winding up. Why am I not dead yet?
I thought my back hurt before.
Anyway, this is excerpt from Abortion Tales out of the Wild West. What was it? White Hills Like Wild Elephants. It's not the Wild West. This is in Europe. Spaghetti Western. Well, gee, I can't get depressive enough about this. Hold on.
Well, abortion.
Kitten abortion. There, that made it somber. That's one of the most terrible things I can think of. Well, the man said, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I wouldn't have you do it if you don't want to, but I know it's perfectly simple. Piece of shit.
Simple.
Piece of shit. Especially in the 20s. They were fucking literally just jamming a rod up there and twisting it. And you really want to? I think it's the best thing to do. But I don't want you to do it if you don't really want to do it.
Manipulative fuck.
And if I do it, you'll be happy and things will be like they were and you'll love me. I love you now. You know I love you. I know. But if I do it, then it'll be nice again if I say things are like white elephants and you'll like it. I'll love it. I love it now, but I just can't think about it. You know how I get when I worry. If I do it, you won't ever worry. I won't worry about that because it's perfectly simple. So the whole story is like they don't actually say abortion or terminate. It's just implied, but it's the guy trying to talk her into having an abortion, he's gaslighting her into thinking it's her idea or it's a good idea.
Very manipulative.
It's very simple. They just in and out, you're done. It's like, no, it's not very simple, especially back then.
Yeah.
In fucking Europe. This example of dialogue from Hemingway's short story Hills Like White Elephants moves at quite a clip. The conversation quickly bounces back and forth between the speakers, and the call and response format of the woman asking and the man answering is effective because it establishes a clear dynamic between the two speakers. Have you done a lot of that in your work? Because I do that, especially in faster paced stories where no interspersed action, no action at all, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Just lines of dialogue?
Yeah, back and forth.
I do that sometimes.
It's fun to break it up, but it's that's good for crime, I find.
It also depends on what's going on. Like if it's really if they're just like if it's two people talking, and then you can have dialogue. Yeah.
You don't always need he took a sip of tea. And, just back and forth. Number 10, Madeline Miller, Circe. I think it's Circe. Is it Greek? Yeah, Circe's. Okay. Madeline Miller, Circe. In Madeline Miller's retelling of Greek myth, we witness a conversation between the mythical enchanter lady, Circe, and Telemachus, son of Odysseus. You do not grieve for your father. I do. I grieve that I never met the father everyone told me I had. I narrowed my eyes. Explain. I am no storyteller. I am not asking for a story. You have come to my island. You owe me truth. A moment passed, and then he nodded. You will have it. What was that giving you? Two people being bullheaded, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
This short and punchy exchange hits on a lot of the stylistic points we've covered so far. The conversation is a taut tennis match between the two. Yeah, so basically it's just, you feel the tension between them by, not having action interspersed or anything. You're just back and forth, but even shorter. Whereas the Hemingway example was a little more drawn out with the dialogue because it's two people. They're talking around a subject while being, they're not being direct, but that's the only subject they're discussing and on their minds. And then they're also trying to do it because they're in public cafe when they're having this discussion. So there's a lot of nuance to the Hemingway one, where this one, it's literally two people just having a
it kind of like a tennis match, kind of.
Well, that's what it says. Yeah, like a tennis match, back and forth and very hard. And that's fun. 11, Andre Ackerman, Aciman, Aciman. Call me by your name. All right, Assman. There's no S. There should not be Assman. So Andre Ackerman, call me by my name. This is an early conversation between 17-year-old Elio and his family's handsome new student lodger, Oliver. What did one do around here? Nothing. Wait for summer to end. What did one do in the winter then? I smiled at the answer I was about to give. He got the gist and said, Don't tell me. Wait for summer to come, right? I like having my mind read. He'd picked up on dinner drudgery sooner than those before him. Actually, in the winter, the place gets very gray and dark. We come for Christmas. Otherwise, it's a ghost town. And what else do you do here at Christmas besides roast chestnuts and drink eggnog? He was teasing. I offered the same smile as before. He understood, said nothing. We laughed. He asked what I did. I played tennis, swam, went out at night, jogged, transcribed music, read. He said he jogged too, early in the morning. Where did one jog around here? Along the promenade? Mostly. I could show him if he wanted. It hit me in the face just when I was starting to like him again. Later, maybe. So there's actually only like 3 little lines of dialogue in that. Dialogue is one of the most crucial aspects of writing romance. What's a literary relationship without some flirty lines? Here, however, Aciman gives us a great example of efficient dialogue by removing unnecessary dialogue and instead summarizing with narration. He's able to confer the gist of the conversation without slowing down the pace. I like doing that, but that's a tricky one. Is a lot of times I find, usually when I'm being lazy, it's like I need to say a lot of stuff, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
So how can I do that best? Let me sum up their conversation in the narration, you see that in the most easy example is when, Saddle Sore Sally sat back and told Steve of what had happened the previous night. And then it opens up with, the next thing. After having listened to the tale, Steve was also saddled with sores now, and he didn't know what to do. So you could just wrap up something without actually saying it at all, or just being very, they got drunk and blah, blah, blah. But you don't actually have to have it in dialogue and all that shit. So sometimes it's necessary to not overwrite. Number 12, George Eliot, Middlemarch. One of those fucking long, boring books that I'm never going to read. But everyone in the classic lit group said, you got to read it.
Well, that means you're eventually going to read it.
I don't have any. It's like Pride and Prejudice. I just have no inclination to read it. 2 of Eliot's characters, Mary and Rosamond, are out shopping. Rosamond? No, they're shopping. When she and Rosamond happened both to be reflected in the glass, she said laughingly, What a brown patch I am. I don't know why I thought that was funny. What a brown patch I am by the side of you, Rosie. You are the most unbecoming companion. What does that mean? Brown patch. You're just a fucking shit smear.
When I can't tell if she's talking about her or her friend,
What a shit smear I am by the side of you, Rosie. Okay. That's what I'm inferring it as. Oh, no. No one thinks of your appearance. You are so sensible and useful, Mary. Beauty is of very little consequence in reality, said Rosamond,
you're ugly.
You're ugly. Turning her head towards Mary, but with eyes swerving towards the new view of her neck in the glass. You mean my beauty, said Mary, rather sardonically. Rosamond thought, poor Mary, she takes the kindest things ill. Aloud, she said, What have you been doing lately? Minding the house, pouring out syrup, pretending to be amiable and contented, learning to have a bad opinion of everyone. She's a bitch. She's sarcastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This excerpt, a conversation between the level-headed Mary and vain Rosamond, is an example of dialogue that develops character relationships naturally. Action descriptors allow us to understand what is really happening in the conversation, whilst the speech alone might lead us to believe blah, blah, blah. So that's a good writing tool, is where you could have the narration and the dialogue be separate things. Mm-hmm. So the narration, hey, Spencer, you're looking real buff today. And then, Caleb said, but in his mind, he thought that Spencer looked like a sack of hog shit, or something along those lines. Like you can show that the person is not speaking the truth. Mm-hmm. Or you could do vice versa. They're lying and you can get the truth in the narration. Here's how I would rewrite that, though. What a sack of shit I am by the side of you, Rosie. You are the most asshole companion. Oh, no one thinks of your appearance. You're just ugly and fuckable. I don't know what I'm saying. Let's go on. Number 13, John Steinbeck, The Winter of Our Discontent. Oh, it's the most fucking saddest.
Let's say, have you got that one?
Yeah, it's not necessarily sad as it is like, I can see myself trying to drown myself. Especially after reading The Winter of Our Discontent. Oh, here's a guy that's very smart, but he just works in a very shitty market.
So should I read that during the winter?
I did. Well, it's not a pick-me-up. Here, Mary, speaking first, reacts to her husband Ethan's attempts to discuss his previous experiences as a disciplined soldier, his struggles in subsequent life, and his feelings of impending change. You're trying to tell me something. Sadly enough, I am, and it sounds in my ears like an apology. I hope it is not. I'm going to set out lunch. That's it. Steinbeck's Winter of Our Discontent is an acute study of alienation and miscommunication, and this exchange exemplifies the ways in which characters can fail to communicate even when they're speaking. The pair speaking here are trapped in a dysfunctional marriage which leaves Ethan feeling isolated, and part of his loneliness comes from the accumulation of exchanges such as this one. Whenever he's talking to her, she shuts him down. It's just the Winter of Caleb. Let's just say that. It is a fucking depressing goddamn read. 14, Bret Easton Ellis, Less Than Zero. Have you ever read any Ellis?
No, but I watched the movie if it's based off of that.
I didn't know there was a movie, but all right.
I am pretty sure that's the movie with Robert Downey Jr. when he gets hooked on drugs and he has to do sex favors and stuff.
That was a movie, or is that just Robert Downey Jr. in the 90s?
No, that was a young Robert Downey Jr. It also had what's his face who played Age of Ultron, and he was in the second to last season.
Bill Bellamy.
No, he was in The Office too. That next to last season, he hit Rob California.
Oh, what the fuck's his name?
Yeah,
I forget. He's the guy that's not James Woods.
Oh yeah,
it's like when I think of those guys, it's like no, not James Woods, the other guy, the other generic white guy that I see in a lot of things.
Yeah,
he's when you see him, you know him.
Right. Yeah,
but when you don't see him, you forget about his existence.
Yeah, because he's been in everything. He was even in an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And,
fuck, what is his name? James something?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so anyway, the disillusioned main character of Bret Easton Ellis' debut novel, Clay, here catches up with the college friend Daniel, whom he hasn't seen in a while. He keeps rubbing his mouth, and when I realize that he's not going to answer me, I ask him what he's been doing. Been doing? Yeah. Hanging out? Hanging out where? Where? Around. Less Than Zero is an elegy to conversation, and this dialogue is an example of the many vacuous, how the fuck do you say this word? Vacuous, having a showing a lack of thought. It shows the many exchanges the protagonist engages in, seemingly just to fill time. The whole book is deliberately unpoetic and flat and depicts the lives of disaffected youth in 1980s LA. So that sounds not just depressing, but something I don't think I would like to read necessarily. 15, Daphne du Maurier, Rebecca. That's another one you should read. I think it's another lady book. The young narrator of du Maurier's, I'm not saying her name at all right, by the way, probably. It's French. I'm fucking...
Say it right.
The young narrator of du Maurier's classic gothic novel here has a strained conversation with Robert, one of the young staff members at her new husband's home. The unwelcoming Manderley. His name's Manderley.
Manderley.
Or her name's Manderley. Somebody's name is Manderley.
Not a good name.
It's not. It's not a good name. It's a bad name. It's a very bad name. Manderley. Maybe it fits the character. You don't know. Not French. I don't know if she's French. I don't know fucking. Where were we?
Mandalay.
Has Mr. De Winter... Why does everyone got a fucking D or a do or a do? Just be a person. Just be Winter. Has Mr. De Winter been in, I said. Yes, madame, said Robert. He came in just after 2 and had a quick lunch and then went out again. He asked for you and Frith said he thought you must have gone down to see the ship. Did he say when he would be back again, I asked. No, madam. Perhaps he went to the beach another way, I said. I may have missed him. Yes, madam, said Robert. I looked at the cold meat and the salad. I felt empty but not hungry. I did not want cold meat now. Will you be taking lunch? Said Robert. No, I said. No, you might bring me some tea, Robert, in the library. Nothing like cakes or scones, just tea and bread and butter. Yes, madam. That's so entertaining. That's top of the notch. Dialogue.
Entertaining.
Here is a question I have for you, though, Spencer.
Okay.
Where was I? Will you be taking lunch? Said Robert. Now, do you find that in your work you would just, will you be taking lunch? Said Robert, or will you be taking lunch? Asked Robert. What dialogue tag would you prefer? Because I heard people say you shouldn't use asked, but then I see it a lot.
See, I normally use said. I don't use asked. There's been a couple of times.
But if it's a question,
yeah.
I mean, I do sometimes. I don't always.
I wasn't really sure what the rule on that was, so I just normally just stick with like said or says.
I mean, the old rule was just said, but you can use asked. But that's the same thing too. Is like sometimes I'll throw in replied or responded. Mm-hmm. If somebody's directly answering somebody, I keep it minimal, but
you do like an answer too, right? Just be like he
answered,
yeah. Or the response would be he answered.
But sometimes you could say, he answered if you want the dialogue tag. I mean, for me, dialogue tag is usually to remind people who's speaking. So if you have a lot of dialogue, because some works I've read, and I think even Hemingway has done, where it's like, yes, he said. No, she said. Let's go, he said. No, she said. And it's just like fucking he said, she said. And it's like, at some point you could just cut that because we know it's back and forth. Like, but sometimes people, I don't know. I don't do the Cormac McCarthy where it's like nobody said. It's just fucking who's talking.
Yeah.
It's a delicate dance where you have to be sure to remind the reader who's talking, but not over remind them.
And also too, back then too, we don't know what like that could have been like like a more strict rule of like you have to have the dialogue tag. So you know what I mean.
Oh, that's actually, it's funny I brought that up because that's what this is about. We're including this one in our dialogue examples list to show you the power of everything Dumore doesn't do. Rather than cycling through a ton of fancy synonyms for said, she opts for spare dialogue and tags. This interaction's cold, sparse tone complements the lack of warmth the protagonist feels in the moment depicted here. By keeping the dialogue tag simple, the author ratchets up the tension without any distracting flourishes taking the reader out of the scene. The subtext of the conversation is able to simmer under the surface, and we aren't beaten over the head with any stage direction extras. So that's like a good, if you're doing that purposely for that reason, then said would just work. If you had different things, it might, take the reader out of just what's the focus, which is the tense dialogue. So yeah, that makes sense. That's all of them. Game over, bitches.
Done. And the podcast.
So I felt that I am on the right track with my dialogue, or I've been on the right track because I follow all those things. It depends on the story I'm telling, though I do find maybe it's hard to say because in editing I think I do fix a lot of the dialogue mistakes I make, like where too many tags, not enough tags, what kind of tags. I usually clean that up, and I will say 98% of the time I'm satisfied with my final product. I don't think that I often go into the final submission for a story thinking, I should probably change those tags, or I should do this or that. Usually I'm pretty satisfied with how I have done my dialogue. And it is fun sometimes to mess around and do like I purposely write stories sometimes where I'm just like, this is going to be some funky dialogue in this story.
Yeah.
Like I always write things different. That's the thing is like, if you just write horror, you just write crime, you just whatever, like you might find yourself in a formulaic style without even meaning to because you're writing the same kind of stuff. I always write different genres and different things.
To go back to the thing that we talked about the previous episode is like I want to use like accents more, but I find that I'm too lazy or dumb to figure out how to portray the accents right, in a written form, like, you know what I mean? Because I can do that. I can do the accent, like speaking, I can do the accents, but onto like, how do I write that so that, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what I always have trouble with.
Well, I will give you an example of dialogue from a story I just wrote and submitted. It's a Celtic story. It's for a fairy publication. The one you submitted your horror story to.
Right.
You can't read the title because it's in Irish.
Mm.
The title is Cush-lach na Brach. It means besides the Dreaming Lake.
Okay.
I wrote a nice story for a change. But it opens with, it's supposed to be an ancient Celtic story. So the language, I still try to keep it so modern readers won't get fucking bored or like, oh, it's like Shakespearean. So I didn't do that, but I still wrote it in a way where it's like kind of old fashioned, but it's flirty. Most of the story is pretty flirty between the two characters. So let's see if you think the dialogue is all right. I'll only read a few paragraphs. In a misty forest, dewdrops dazzled in the morning sun like enchanted jewels absorbing the colors of the salmon sky. On the forest floor, beneath a sea of broadleaf oak, 2 teenagers foraged for mushrooms atop the damp moss-covered earth. Their youthful voices hummed melodiously in tune with the birdsong choral. Fortune has blessed us today, Finn. How my mother will smile when she sees all the mushrooms we have picked. So first off, which is a thing I like to do a lot, is I use the characters to say the name.
Yeah.
So you know who the characters are without introducing them as Finn woke up and sometimes I'll do that if the story requires it, but if I can, I like to have the characters
call the other character's name.
And then that's how I cement it, And then again, like I mentioned in the other example, maybe that was last week's episode, about, the brothers, like if I can, I'll show that in the dialogue rather than the exposition. How my mother will smile when she sees all the mushrooms we have picked. She might reward you with the sweet treat, though nothing can be as sweet as you, Aoife, Finn winked. So 1, he called her name, so now we got the names. And 2, he winked, so I'm already, besides the flirty nature, I'm giving, some, I like throwing the action in, so you can get that. Oh, stop, Aoife blushed. You are as puckish as that puka my friend Royshin came across down by the Dreaming Lake. Finn stood up, fresh mushroom fruit bodies in hand, and laughed heartily. Royshin is a silly girl. Whenever attention is in short supply, she suddenly finds herself in the presence of the Fae, alone and away from watchful eyes. Are you saying she told me a tall tale? Taller than the Fomori. So now I got like the back and forth dialogue thrown in there too. So it's not just all he said, she said, longer dialogue. I throw intersperse the short dialogue. Taller than the Fomori. Aoife recoiled. Oh, you rotten boy. I dare not think of such monsters. She playfully smacked his shoulder. My brother used to scare me with stories about those brutish giants. She always said if I did not share my hazelnuts with him, they would come to take me away in the night. So now what I did there too is another thing you might not have caught is, I mentioned the Fomori. If you're not familiar with Celtic tales and mythology, you're not going to know that they're giants. It's a race of giants. So what did I do? My brother used to scare me with stories about those brutish giants. So I told you in the dialogue without making it like, oh, the writer's just telling me, So it's a little craftier. With a smirk, Finn rubbed his chin. Do you think they would make a fine porridge out of you? Or perhaps they would simply eat you like the hazelnuts you refused to give your poor, hungry brother? She smacked his shoulder again. You are incorrigible, I swear it. She picked up her mushroom basket. Sometimes I wonder if you and my brother trade places when my back is turned. And that is a hint towards the Changeling, which is another Fae character in our mythology. Now I say, Finn grinned, I'm much more chivalrous than your dear brother. Yet you tease me just the same. Unable to think of a good retort, Finn changed the subject back to Aoife's friend. Do you believe a puka actually spoke to Royshin by the lake? She has no reason to lie, I suppose. So I feel like I implemented a lot of those things from the article without even realizing I did.
Yeah.
But again, if you can show things in the dialogue and give the readers the information they need to know, but do it in the dialogue in a natural way that they don't realize they're absorbing the information.
Because you don't want to. You also, because it's tricky, because you don't want to do like the info dump or the exposition dump, like just like some guy has a big block of text of just explaining everything.
Now, for instance, like the Fomori, the giants. Now that doesn't come up later in the story. I'm just cementing the time period and that these myths are kind of real to these people. Like they still think they're childish, like, oh, that's not real, but in their heads, maybe.
Yeah.
Because this was set way back when. But by mentioning that, I could easily if I was an amateur, which I've read many works that do this, sometimes published work is embarrassing, but it's like, oh, the Fomori will get you or whatever. And then she's, you rotten boy or whatever. And then Finn thought about the Fomori, the ancient tales of giants. And then you give a big, like you said, an info dump. It's like, nobody wants that. You could do it in a sentence. But the way I always go about it, if you can do it in a sentence or a few words rather than paragraphs, do it.
Yeah.
If you could, it's not always less is better, but a lot of times, especially when it's giving info, you don't need to overdo it. That's where like hard sci-fi writers I find have problems because a lot of that stuff you can't.
You're right.
Like to describe certain things, it's very hard. That's when you separate like the good writers from the really good writers. Is you can make this sound interesting, but you're still giving technical jargon. Yeah. Or you could do like an Andy Weir where you give all this technical jargon and dialogue and it's fun. Mm-hmm. And you make it fun because, Mark Watney's a sarcastic asshole.
Yeah.
And even though he's telling you about how the fucking airlock system works and shit, he's doing it in a way that's funny and not boring. Because he's telling you how he got sucked out and or he's telling you, oh, how is he growing potatoes? He could just tell you how he's growing potatoes, or he could tell you about how bad the shit smells that he's been collecting. So you could do it in fun ways. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Topic to cover. Killed 2 episodes and made us lots of money.
All the money.
We don't make any money. No. So if anyone wants to sue us for using their article, we don't have any money. So we'd just shut down the podcast and you'd make dozens of listeners sad.
Yeah.
Anyway, Spencer's OnlyFans this week. He is in Oceania, but this time he is obliterating the orphanages and the orphans.
Weren't profitable enough.
What he did was he built the orphanages and operated them for tax write-offs, charity.
Yes.
And then once he got that tax money, he burned them down for insurance.
Yeah.
He doubled in. He double dipped.
That's just like I didn't take out life insurance on the orphanages, on the actual orphanages.
And he did it in Oceania because no expeditions and whatever country you're fleeing to.
Yeah.
It's far enough away. You managed to globetrot back to the DPW. I don't know how you found the time because it's like 17-hour flight.
Don't you worry about that.
And you're here every week, so I don't know when you found the time to do that.
I'm like Roger from.
You can check out my work, CalebJamesK.com, and hopefully that's part of that story that I just read to you. Hopefully the whole story will be published in September's issue of. What is it? Iron Fairy Publishing?
It was something like that, yeah.
I could easily be rejected and feel depressed about myself. But I did submit a story that I wrote specifically for them. And if that does not get published by them, I will probably publish it myself because I don't know who else would fucking want it. You can check us out at DPW Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And that's it. Next week, I don't know what we're going to be doing, but we'll have an episode at some point. Also, as the dropping of this episode, I should have been on Starlight Pulp's recent Pulpcast episode. Assuming I, A, am able to do it, and B, they have it set as they told me they were scheduled. I haven't got a link or anything yet, but they told me it was supposed to be on July 12th, I believe. So hopefully that's out, and if it is, look on our fucking shit. I'm sure I'll post about it. Anyway, we thank you for listening, and we'll check you out next week.